In this video, we're going to go over the basics of Zotero. Zotero is a bibliographic manager program that's designed to assist you in your research. With Zotero, you can do lots of things like gather and store references, attach PDFs, Word documents, etc., organize your references, share references with groups, insert references into Word docs, and automatically generate a bibliography. In order to use Zotero, you have to download two programs. The first one is the actual Zotero program that will live on your computer, and the second one is something called a connector. The connector plugs into whatever browser that you like to use when you're doing research. In this example, it's Firefox. But if you use another browser, all you need to do is click on the Zotero connector for other browsers link, and you can select the one that you like to use from there. When you open Zotero for the first time, your screen should look something like this. That gray column on the left-hand side that says My Library is where all of your folders will appear. The column in the middle is where all of the individual records that appear in a folder will display. And the column in the far right-hand side is where you'll see the details of an individual record. So right now we don't have anything in our Zotero library, so let's go ahead and learn about how to add things. So now we're going to take a look at how easy it is to export references out of some of our databases into Zotero. So I'm going to start in CINAHL, and we need to, in order to export some records, we need to pull some things up. And since everybody has been so sick lately, let's look for influenza and vaccine. So we're going to get a number of results. I'm obviously not interested in almost 8,000 of them, but if I see a number of things on this page, just right from the title that I decided that I like, I can grab multiple records all at once. And I can do that by going up here, and you can see my Zotero icon looks like a folder. And when I click on it, it's going to give me the option to select multiple records from this page of results. So I'm going to go ahead and check off these 6 and then say OK. And when I do, I can see in the lower right hand corner I get this message from Zotero saying that those records are being saved. Now if I want to just grab an individual record, what I can do is I can click on the title of that record to open it up. And when I do, my icon changes from a folder. It looks like a page. It's hard to see here, but it looks like a page because it's just an individual record. So again, I click on it, I get the notice that it's being exported, and I'm all set. So that's how it works in CINAHL. Let me show you how it works in another database just so that you can see that it's pretty similar. So we're going to do influenza vaccine again. And same thing, if I like multiple records from my page of results, I can click on the Zotero icon, which looks like a folder because I have multiple things to choose from. And again, I'm just checking those off, and I'm just going to check off those first few, say OK, and I get the same indication that those records are being exported. And the same thing happens with an individual record. If I come down here and I decide that I want to just have this record, I click on the title, open it up, the icon changes from a folder to a page. I click it, and I'm just getting this one record. Now that should work for most of the databases that we have. Zotero has been programmed to sort of recognize those databases and talk to them. But what if I'm out on the open web? What if for example, what if I'm out at the CDC site and I see this page on immunization schedules, and I actually click through a couple of times and I decide that, I actually want to cite some of the information off this page. I can still grab a reference for this because Zotero will recognize web pages. If I go up, my icon changes a little bit. That's the icon for a web page, but I want to go ahead and click on it. And again, it's going to give me that notice telling me that it's saving it into my library. The cool thing about grabbing web pages like this is that it actually grabs a snapshot of the web page as well, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So here we are back at our Zotero library, and you can see that all those records that I exported out of CINAHL and PubMed have appeared here, along with that, that web page that I cited. Now, before we start working with the records that are in our Zotero library, there are actually a couple of other ways that you can get records into Zotero that I want to show you. And the first one is to go ahead and click on this green button up here. It's a green circle with a white plus in it, and when you do, it's going to ask you to pick a format that you want to use that describes the thing you're trying to put into Zotero. And they give you 6 of them by default here, or 5 of them by default. But if you need to see more, just mouse over the more and you'll see there's a whole list of them. So I'm going to pretend that I went to a conference and I would like to include a record for that conference in my library. Now that conference talk isn't in PubMed, it doesn't exist anywhere, so I can't go find it in another database. That's why I have to create it from scratch. So I'm going to click on conference paper, and when I do, you'll see that the conference paper form opens up and it's going to ask me for the title. Now I don't actually have a real title, so I'm just going to make some stuff up. Why flu vaccines are okay. And then I'm going to put in, who was the author, who gave the talk. So I'm going to click on where it says last, and I'm just going to pretend that Jane Doe gave that talk. Is there an abstract? Well, there usually is an abstract for something at a conference. We'll go over why vaccines are okay. This obviously wasn't a very great talk. I have a date. It was, May 1st, 2017. And as you can tell, there's lots of other fields here. I could keep filling these in. I'm not going to, but you get the idea. You'd fill out as much as you could. And you can see right over here in our library, it started to, everything that I've entered in has started to show up. So that's an example of creating a record from scratch. You can also have Zotero go out and look for a citation for you. And you do that with something called a magic wand, which sounds very cool, and it is. It's right here beside that green plus button. And when you click it, it's going to say type in an ISBN number, a DOI, or a PMID. And these are all, if you're not aware, these are all very specific numbers that point to a unique item. ISBNs are usually for books, DOIs are usually for articles, although they can be for lots of other things. And PMID numbers are unique to PubMed. They point to an individual record. So I'm actually going to type in a PMID. So let's see, 2947. 4132, and when I press the enter key, if you watch the center of my Zotero screen, it's going to show up, and there it is. Who's the target, mother or baby? And you can see over here it pulled in all the information. So that's a situation where, because I had that PMID number, Zotero went on and looked for the information for me. In this case, I didn't have to go into PubMed and look the record up. So those are 2 extra ways that you can get materials in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to switch and we're going to talk a little bit about how to organize materials in your Zotero library. So now that we have some records here in our Zotero library, let's do a little work on them. Let's make our database a little more useful. And one way to do that is to go ahead and pull in some PDFs for all the records that we have. Now, unfortunately, there is no automatic way to do that. You have to do it manually. So what you would do is you would find the PDF for one of the records in your Zotero library, and then you would connect it. So the way we're going to do that is I'm going to click on this article, the one that I pulled in, who's the target, mother or baby. I'm going to right click on it, and then I'm going to select add attachment. And what I want to do is I want to attach a stored copy of a file because I have that PDF on my in my hard drive. So I select that, and then I'll need to find it, and it's actually on my desktop, and there it is right there. So I click open, and now when I click the little down arrow, I can see there's the PDF, and if I were to double click on it, it would open right up. So as I said, it's a little bit of a pain that it doesn't do it automatically, but at least you can connect them. And it's important to know that you can connect things other than PDFs. You can connect Word files, you can connect PowerPoints, Excel files, anything you want. Now, of course, the only difference is for web pages. Remember, I clicked on that immunization schedule, and it actually took a snapshot of that page. So even if that page disappeared, if it got pulled off the web, I could double click this snapshot and I can see there's a picture of that page. So that's definitely very nice to be able to do that. So that's the first level. The second level that I want to deal with is I want to clean up some of my database, my Zotero library, in case I have duplicates in it. And Zotero will check for you if you click on duplicate items. And I can see here, oh, I have, this record, I have 2 of them. So if I go back to my library and find it, and there it is, I can right click on it and say move this item to the trash. Are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I do. And you can see now I only have 1 version of that record. And actually if I click on my trash, I can see there it is. And you can throw away anything that way. You just select it and say right click and move it into the trash. Now I can also break this overall library up into different folders. So I can create a new folder here by clicking on the folder icon. What do you want to name it? I'm just going to name it Group A for no particular reason. And you can see now I have this Group A folder. If I want to start pulling things over there, I can just drag them and they'll start showing up. And I can do them one at a time. I can click one, hold down the Shift key, click another one, select multiple ones, and they'll go right in there. And if I click on my Group A folder, that's where everything is. And I can have multiple folders, so I could have a Group B, and I can drag other things in there. I'm gonna grab a bunch of stuff this time and drag that into B. And you'll notice that I've actually grabbed a couple of things that are in both of these smaller folders. That's one of the nice things about Zotero is if you have a record that is relevant to different projects, you can put them in the different folders like that. You could actually make subfolders. So if I wanted to make a subfolder of this, I could call it Group A-1, and I'll drag it into there, and you can see now it's indented. I could even drag something there. So folders are the easiest way for you to organize things. Each record also does have tags. So if I click on a record and then click on the tags button over here, I can see that it has 5 tags already associated with it. Those tags are actually, because we pulled this from either CINAHL or PubMed, they use the subject headings for tags. And if you want to continue to do that, that's great. You could get rid of one if you wanted to by clicking the minus. You can add your own tags. So like if you, let's say that this was, let's say you were writing a dissertation or something like that, and you had multiple chapters in it, and you knew that this record was going to be in chapter 4, you could do that. And all of those tags show up over here. And by default, it kind of shows everything, but you can search for them, and you can see it. I started to type chapter 4, and there it was. And when I click on it, it pulls up that individual record. You can also take, I'm going to go back to my main library, so I'm going to cancel this out. You can also, if you select something, you can take your own notes. So if you want to add a note, a great article, you can take those notes and they'll get saved. And you can see when I expand this out, it's going to show my note there. And you can add as many notes as you want to. So that's a really quick look at some of the organization that you can do with your library and all of the things in it. So let's take a few minutes to talk about how Microsoft Word and Zotero work together. I'm going to go ahead and pretend that I'm writing my paper. This isn't going to be a very exciting paper, but let's pretend that I have reached a point where I am ready to insert my first in-text citation. So I'm going to use APA format as an example. In an APA, the in-text reference goes before the period. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up, and you should see a Zotero tab on your menu up here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And when I do, I have a few buttons over here. And what I want to do is I'm going to click on the Add and Edit Citation button. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to say, well, what style do you want to use? I'm using APA, so I'm going to click and select that one. If I was using Chicago, I would pick that one, or MLA, I'd pick that one. Whichever one you want, you just go ahead and select and say OK. And then when you do, this bar shows up. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to type in either a word or the author's name or a year or something that will appear in the record that you want to cite. So I'm just going to start typing influenza, and you can see I have a number of things that pop up here. Let's pretend that I actually am interested in this first one. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it, and when I do, it puts that in-text citation in the box, and then all I do is press the Enter key on my keyboard, and it will go ahead and it will insert it into the text of my paper. I would obviously keep rolling along. I would keep writing. I'd reach a point where I was ready to insert another citation, put my cursor there, click Add and Edit Citation. And let's pretend that this time I actually want to select, I want to cite more than one person. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start typing a word in that I think will show up in the record. And let's say that I want to use this, this record right here. So I select it, but now what I need to do is I need to go find the second record that I want to include. And I happen to know that one of the authors of one of these papers is named Tam. So I start typing that in, and sure enough, there it is. Again, I click on it to select it. So now both of them appear. I press Enter on my keyboard, and you can see they both appeared in the in-text citation. So obviously you would keep writing and save your paper and keep working on, but eventually you're going to reach a point where you're at the end and you're ready to create a bibliography. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Enter a couple of times. I'm going to type in works cited or whatever, whatever the particular format is required for the paper that you're doing. And I'm going to go back to my Zotero tab, and this time I'm going to click on the Add Edit Bibliography button. And when I do, watch what happens. Boom, everything shows up. There it is. So Zotero automatically inserted all of those things in there based on the references in my text. Now there are a couple of things I want to point out. One of them is specific to APA, and that is the journal title in APA. All of the, or most of the words in the journal, the article title, need to be lowercase. And you can see that this C is not lowercase, just like this M isn't, and this W isn't. Those should all be lowercase. That's something that you need to watch out for. Zotero does a pretty good job of finding all the pieces that are supposed to go into your APA citation, but it does not do the capitalization very well. So what you would need to do is you would need to change that. Now, most people would be inclined to just click and take out that capital C and put in a small c. But you're not going to want to do that. When you single click on anything in your bibliography, or actually anything on your in-text citation, you will see that this gray bar appears, and that gray bar indicates that this was content that was auto-generated by Zotero. And when that happens, Zotero and Microsoft Word are constantly talking to each other, and at some point, and I'm actually going to force it by clicking on the refresh button, at some point it's going to go back and it's going to check, and you can see it changed that small c back to the large C, the capital C. And the reason why is because that's how it appears in my record in Zotero. So if I wanted to fix this, I would have to go into Zotero and make the change there. So those are two things to keep an eye out on. One, with APA, watch your capitalization and even your italics, if it does italics right. And the other thing is, if you need to make a change for whatever reason, make the change back in your original record in Zotero. Don't do it in your Microsoft Word document. So that's Zotero in a nutshell. If you need help, please don't hesitate to contact me. You can either give me a call at 64488, you can email me at gatwood@uvm.edu, or you can stop by and ask your question in person at Dana.